Hey, y'all. My name is Timothy Bray, and this is the Art of Approach podcast, episode 6. I am a dating coach and approach coach, and I have my co host, Will Mulvaney, with us today. And he is a client and a coach in training. And if you're not familiar with this podcast, we talk about all kinds of range of subjects from the early parts of approaching and meeting new people to dating. And we have a coaching program at theartofapproach.com that you can check out. We also have a special guest with us today. Her name is Nicole Karmine, and she is an interpersonal intelligence coach. And she focuses on interpersonal intimacy related matters. And we're going to hear a little bit about what her whole program is after we review what we normally do on this podcast, which is reviewing the Instagram reels, reviewing questions from Reddit, and also questions from our own community. And we take those questions and we make comments and critiques on them and kind of give you guys a little sense of what is at the root of the matter of a lot of this dating advice to help you make more informed decisions. So let's get it started, Will.
I just want to say thank you, Nicole, for being on today. Looking forward to hearing more about what you do and getting your input. First off, we have a Instagram reel. So let's listen.
So dating is approach more. It doesn't make you look thirsty, and guys love it. And guys, take advantage of opportunities when women approach you. It doesn't happen often enough, but be prepared to lead the conversation and ask for her number. I'm a dating coach for men, but the number one...
Okay. So, yeah, I like this one because it gets another perspective because she's talking to women here. So I'm curious if either of you guys want to start with your initial reactions.
Yeah, I loved hearing that, obviously. I have never personally had a problem with a woman approaching me. I've always kind of found that to be to essentially the feeling I got is that she's an empowered woman. She knows what she wants, and I love that. But I know that there's some guys out there that do have issues with that for some reason. You know, I can't really speak for them, but for me, I love that advice.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm curious, Nicole, from the woman's perspective, what does this look like to you? What do you think about it?
Well, firstly, thanks for having me on. It's really special to chat to you guys today. So thank you for the opportunity. And to come from a woman's perspective, I think I was quite surprised when she said she's a dating coach for men. I was expecting to hear she's a dating coach for women. And I don't know why there is perhaps this, kind of stereotype in my own mind. I think it's great advice. As a woman, I sometimes struggle to approach guys as well. I think that it is more rare for women to approach guys. I think men should use that opportunity. I completely agree with her. Whenever I have, men have always embraced it and really opened up. But I can see there's a surprise from their side. It is definitely not a common thing. And I have been chatting to some of my girlfriends lately, and women tend to wait for the man to come and approach them. I don't know, it might be a more old school thing. I know you guys have spoken about this on the podcast before, but I think times are changing, so men should totally embrace that. And yeah, I think it's great advice.
Yeah, and I mean, we've talked about this, how there's kind of different ways. Like for women, the advice tends to be a little bit different, where it's like making themselves more available rather than being super direct in the way that guys tend to be. And so this is like a way to make yourself available. Maybe you don't come off and make it clear that you're into the guy, but you put yourself into a conversation. You open up with just a comment or a simple question, and then you give the guy the chance to take it to that next level.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
and
quite
just
curious. Go for it.
no, you go for it, Nicole.
I'm actually curious about what she means with approach, because I think women do approach men in subtle ways, like you were mentioning now. We make eye contact. We kind of hint in a way to say, please do approach me, or please do not approach me. And so I'm quite curious to hear more of what she's talking about specifically, and if it's really that kind of go up to someone and say something and give your number.
Yeah. I just wanted to add in that I think that there is a desire for women, and you can tell me what you think, Nicole. I think there is a desire for women to have the man approach them because it symbolizes a number of core qualities that they might have about themselves. So with confidence, that means that they have, done a lot of work to understand that what they're working with is worthy of an approach. Courage, meaning that they are willing to go beyond their normal comfort zone to address things in their lives that are important to them. And to be able to do all of that with humor and grace is tells a lot about a guy. And I think a lot of women that I've talked to have wanted those qualities in an approach. So for the woman to take over that kind of role, I think a lot of women, from what I've heard, are feeling like they're going to miss out on seeing those qualities at the beginning.
I think that's spot on. I think that's one of the main things why we will hint, but we still wait for the guy to make the first move. I've obviously been on the dating apps a little bit, but I don't really like it. I'm very old school in that sense, and I don't know. I don't want to really say old school because I think it's a wonderful thing. But I really appreciate it when a guy comes up to me and has that courage, like you say. It does demonstrate something about them, and like you say, it's just the quirky, the joke or the pickup line. Is it personal? Is it interesting? Does it engage? And it does. I mean, they always say you can learn about someone in the first 10 seconds that you meet them. You know who they are, in a sense. So I think that's really important. I think it's important that we can see that side. And as a woman, I want to see that. I want to know someone can do that. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you just pointed something out in what you just said around quirkiness. And I'm, with the humor, there's that opportunity to show sort of your creativity as well, which is another really, wonderful, attractive quality that you might be missing out on. So yeah, that's I never thought about it in that kind of sense, that there's creativity added into the entire mix of a single approach. I mean, so much. It's like a compacted, concentrated display of your humanity in these moments.
Absolutely. And I was thinking about your guys' podcast and the name. I think it's such a wonderful way of phrasing it, because it's not just about someone approaching you. It's also about that art of who you are in the way you approach yourself, in the way you approach others through that. So to me, it's almost like the art of your approach, not just approach. How are you bringing who you are to the table? How are you showing who you are and your unique qualities, like you say, the quirkiness? I mean, life gets too boring if we're not just being ourselves with other people too,
Absolutely. And, that's why in our program, The Art of Approach, we really do work on all facets of your life, because when you're going up and doing that approach, as you're saying, you're kind of presenting everything on the table. It calls everything into question about who you are. So it requires that you get all of your stuff straight before you really can create the best impression in those moments.
Yeah, I wanted to call back to what you said, Nicole, about like what does she mean by approach? Because that was so good. Because I've been thinking about this lately, which is like what you said about eye contact being like a form of approach in itself. And it's not even it's not even really that subtle, because like when you make clear eye contact with someone and they like, and you lock eyes, like you both know. And then that's kind of you putting it into the guy's, like the ball is now in his court. Like he knows you're interested. It's now his turn to make his approach. So that's a great point of like what does approach mean? Anything else on that, Tim? Or should we move on to our Reddit?
I'm good. Nicole, did you have any last question? Any last thoughts on that?
No, I was just digesting what Will was saying, and it's true. I mean, the eyes are the window to the soul, so it's absolutely, you can't lie.
Yeah.
Someone once said something like a soul stare, you know, when you look at someone. So yeah, no, absolutely, it is.
Yes, absolutely. All right, let's do the Reddit post.
All right. So this one's just a quick question. And it's prefaced with serious in parentheses. Women of Reddit, what's the best non-creepy way to approach a woman that you don't know but are interested in? So I feel like we have to start with Nicole on this one, because me and Tim are not women of Reddit. I don't know if you're on Reddit, Nicole, but at least you're
I'm
a
not
woman.
on Reddit, but we can give it a go. Oh, that's such a hard one, actually. I can't even say I've had a creepy approach. So I can't speak from experience, but what I can say is I think women really appreciate it when you are direct and honest and who you are. If that's creepy, maybe you've got some things to sort out. I don't know. But I think, you know, on the whole, most men won't come across creepy when you're being yourself. And it's really when you're trying to be beyond or exaggerating some kind of part which you think you should be exaggerating, which you think society or the woman might want, that it becomes creepy. And you know, I think also it depends on the culture. I think me being in France at the moment, it's a whole different ball game to other places. What might seem romantic in one culture is not as romantic in another. And so, yeah, I think I don't creepy, as long as you are respecting someone's boundaries, as long as you are aware of what they are saying to you and signaling to you, you will not come across as creepy. But just be yourself. And if that doesn't resonate, then don't push it, is all I can say. But I've never really had a bad creepy experience. So thank goodness for that. I'd like to hear what the other women are saying though.
I'm surprised that, Nicole, out of all of the years on this earth, you haven't had a creepy approach. That's actually quite mesmerizing to think that.
Maybe it's the way I interpreted it. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like what you said made a ton of sense to me. I would caution people with the term "just be yourself," because a lot of the times that guys are, told that they're acting out of authenticity, and that's what they're being at the moment. I would say I would just correct that and just say, like, be authentic. Like, say the things that you want to say, express the desires that you want to say, and speak from the heart is really, I think, what it comes down to. But yeah, for me, when I think of people being creepy, and I think we've talked about this in other podcasts, I feel like a lot of guys are so concerned with this. This is something that comes up a lot, as we've seen in, various posts out there. What it seems to me is that it's the mere fact that guys are concerned about this that probably leads them to do more creepy stuff. That also in having malintentions. We had somebody at our meetup group who had to unfortunately ban because he was doing these approaches with our group where he just seemed very like he had malicious type. It felt like he had malicious intentions. I don't know if he did or not, but that's the way it felt. And I was noticing he was going like straight up to women and like right in their face and like trying to talk to them, and they were screeching away. So I think it really does have a lot to do with what kind of energy you're bringing to the table, and worrying about this subject is probably even making things even worse for you. So you gotta trust in yourself. You gotta put that investment in yourself that you're that what you're bringing to the table is not creepy and also has a lot of value and is something that a lot of people are going to want to be around. And if you can start from there, that's probably a better place than starting from worrying that you're going to come off like a creep.
Yeah, I think you guys hit it perfectly. Like if you can align your intentions with your approach, like who you bring yourself in is the real you, then it's not creepy. Because the creepy part is when you don't really understand why this person is here talking to you. It feels like they're trying to like do something and you're not really sure why. I think that's when it gets creepy.
Mhm.
So as long as you are clear with yourself and then there's like the being able to like be aware of your emotional state too. Like we talk about that too. Like if you're nervous, be aware that you're nervous and maybe even call it out. Like tell her that I'm nervous right now doing this, but I had to come talk to you. Because as soon as you try to hide that, then it can become creepy and very off-putting.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Actually, now that you explained it in that way, Tim, I definitely have had some creepy encounters. But where people have kind of breached the personal space, I think that's often the thing. It's the personal space boundary as well, you know. I want to say for women out there, I feel like it takes two to tango as well, you know. If you're not giving off the right energy, because I really do believe what you put out there is what you're going to draw to you. And so if you're making yourself available for interactions like that, with subconsciously sometimes, that's what's going to happen, you know. And so you might be signaling something to a guy that he's interpreting in some way, and then that feels creepy to you, but you didn't put up a boundary or you didn't show your intention in the right way. So I don't think it's only on men here. And I think it's good to see both. And both people have to be authentic in their energy and how they resonate in the world. And yeah, you won't have as many creepy encounters if you've got the right approach in your own self and how you're putting yourself out there in the world, I think.
Interesting. You know, I'm curious to know a little bit more about what you're talking about how women might be fueling that fire or something like that you were saying.
Yes, yeah. So let's say, for example, that you know, you and your girlfriends are in a club and you are dressed up and whatever else, and maybe you are putting an energy out there that you want people to see you and notice you, and it could be coming from an ego place. You want that boost. We've all been there. And then the wrong kind of interaction finds you. And so I think it's just like you were coming back to what you're saying, both of you actually, it's the intention, you know, it's like, who are you opening yourself up to? Who are you dressing up for? And I think that opens you up to a whole host of things that when sometimes I think it's quite unfair on the men when women show things and then the man will approach and then the woman's like, oh, he's being creepy. You know, maybe he wasn't. Maybe it was what you were opening up yourself up to. So there's that
Wow.
bucket, and then there is the really creepy bucket. So we can separate those two.
That is so interesting. I never thought about how, you know, that sort of like ego-driven, attention-seeking kind of energy might be pulling in creepsters. You know, I never thought about that, but I could see that happening for sure. You're right. It does take two to tango, Nicole.
Yeah, definitely. It's a dance, right? I mean, relationships are not a one-way street. So
Absolutely.
I'm curious, Nicole, so we talk a little bit about like tactics to avoid like coming off as creepy, and it's usually like don't approach from directly behind someone, don't walk straight up to them and like, encroach on their personal space. Typically we advise against like the nighttime if a girl is alone, or at least to, go into that cautiously. So I'm curious if you have any experiences with any of those type of being approached in any of those ways.
Yes. I've definitely had some encounters where I have been on my own, like you say, at night or something, and you kind of like veer off into a different street. I must be honest, less so in France here. I think there's just from a quick cultural view, there's kind of a feeling here that you really get to know someone on a friendship kind of personal level before you approach them in that way. So I think that's quite nice. But I have had those kind of situations, and I think approaching someone with them seeing that you are coming towards them is quite helpful. Like you were saying, it gives them, especially as a woman on your own, and I grew up in South Africa, so I'm security aware and safety aware. You at least have that moment to be like, oh, okay, you look in the person's eyes, like you were saying, and you're like, this person's coming from a good place and a good intention. Having said that, though, I think I was speaking about this on our Friday Fields podcast a few episodes back. My mom and dad met with my mom tripping my dad from behind, and he fell. And so sometimes when you feel the energy that it's right, that's okay, and it's the intention that you're coming from again. So yeah, I think the main thing is, most people don't really appreciate being touched immediately, but just take your time. I think women appreciate a slower approach. And yeah, I think that at least comes from my opinion, my perspective. So yeah.
Nice.
Great. Okay, we have a community question now. And this is one me and Tim talked about a few weeks ago in an episode we had to scrap for technical issues. And this kind of ties back to something you brought up earlier, Nicole. So the question comes from Avi, who's a community member. And his question is, if everyone hates dating apps and no one wants to be single, why are there not more people meeting in real life? So who wants to take a stab at that?
I can just start with saying that because it's fucking terrifying. For both men and women.
Yeah.
Having to confront rejection in a way that it's so personal, even though it's not really personal. That's the illusion. The illusion is that it feels like it's really personal, but it actually is not. And, essentially what we're doing here is we're marketing ourselves. And when, we feel like we're marketing ourselves, we feel like that person would know everything about us when we first go up and talk to them. But the truth of the matter is that it takes so long to really get to know people. And I think because there's that, I don't know what you want to call it, that's sort of like breaking the thinking about the system, that we tend to focus and think that all of this is just about us, and that's where it becomes very difficult. But yeah, everybody is pissed off about dating apps. I swear to God, it's everywhere I go. I totally get it. And yeah, people need to find ways to get out there for sure if they want to promote and have the best life for themselves.
Yeah.
What do you think, Nicole?
I have a very interesting perspective now, having been traveling. I am not for the dating apps. I think I was telling you at some point, Tim, that I found myself. I'd never really been on there much. I've always kind of been in relationships, and so I went on there while I was traveling because I was like, well, how else am I going to meet people in my area? yes, you go out on your own and whatever else, and after a little while, I found myself literally walking down the streets, like swiping left and right in my mind as I saw people, and I thought, this is terrible. Like, how is this happening to me? And it creates that what's the right word? It kind of just puts you in that mindset of judging people in that way, which I think is really not great. You have to really get to know someone, and like we were talking about their quirkiness and who they are, and that takes time. And sometimes the idea of what you have in your mind of what is good for you doesn't come in the same shape and form and whatever it is that you might think. A lot of people think they want a tall, dark-haired person, but the person for them is, short and blonde. You never know. So I think what is great about the apps is, as you are traveling, you do get to meet cool people. And again, I think it comes down to the intention. If you're going on there with the intention to just make cool connections, meet people, share life, all of that, amazing. But if you're going on there with the intention to meet your life partner or for ego boost, then I think that might end up quite badly for you. But people have met other life partners on there and are married, good friends of mine. So I'm not going to completely diss them, but I do completely value real life in-person connection, exactly for the reasons we were talking about earlier, having the courage to talk to people, showing a different side of yourself. Sometimes when you're joining hobbies and communities and go out and do things, you are being in your true self and you're having fun. And I think when you're having fun in life is when you're going to meet the people that resonate with that. I think that is the best way to meet great people, is when you are in your best self, whatever that looks like. So
I completely agree with that, without a doubt. Being in your joy attracts joy. Yeah, that was really good. Will, do you have anything you want to add on that?
Yeah. I think also if you're there to avoid, kind of to tie both of your points together, if you're there on the apps because you can't do it because you're trying to avoid the rejection of meeting people in real life, then it's not going to go too well. But I am curious. I do like, Nicole, that you're not like throwing everything out with dating apps. Like there can be a function to them. But yeah, I think as soon as it's from a place of need, where it's like, I can't do this in real life, I can't meet people in real life, then you run into problems. The one other thing, I think it comes down to, it's like a short-term versus long-term. Just the way the human brain works. We're avoiding rejection in the short term, but then we're missing out on the long-term reward, which is like the real connection. And it's definitely easier to make a real connection when you meet someone in person, because you immediately get to know them on a much deeper level than you would if you were just messaging them and you just had seen some pictures in a profile. So I think it's just the natural human instinct to avoid the immediate danger without recognizing the long-term problems that are going to come up from it.
Yeah, I think as Nicole was saying, the intention, with dating apps, the intention's also playing a huge role into everything too. But yeah, that's really good. I also don't think that you should have to completely avoid dating apps either, but I don't think it should be a reliance.
Yeah.
It ends up forming a reliance, and it also gives you the impression that this is how everybody does it, and nobody goes out and approaches anybody anymore. So don't even think about it. Getting off these things, Sorry, Nicole, what were you saying?
No, I just want to add to that is that I think people are really scared of putting themselves out there, more so now than before. And a lot of people ask me, like, as you're traveling, how do you meet people? And, sometimes you have to go out on your own. Sometimes you just have to get on that bus, to get on the train, to go out into this space at night or whatever it is, and to meet people, and don't be scared to do that is kind of my invitation to everybody. So sometimes you feel awkward on your own. I think a lot of people go onto the apps because they don't have people to go with them necessarily. But just do it. You never know who you might run into. Just be open to possibilities. Yeah, you might have some crazy experiences that you never expected to have, and meet cool people. So, and I think also not expecting that every interaction that you have with someone is going to lead to this lifelong love, we are, and it could, and that's wonderful. But we are also here to experience being human, and that means meeting cool people all the time and having cool experiences with each other. So I think there's so much pressure to find that person, and I think you probably find them when you least expect it anyway. So
Yeah, and I just want to add to that. I know I've mentioned this in another podcast, but one of the things that really ended up creating, I don't know how you want to say this, kind of impeded my progress when I was first practicing this stuff of getting out there, was the idea that if I go out to an event or a meetup or something that I'm passionate about, am I going to actually find somebody that I'm attracted to? Like that was the thought thing that was going in my head when I was thinking about that. And of course it had me avoid every opportunity to get out there. And I feel especially for women, it is important to get yourself out into all the situations that bring joy and passion into your world. Even more so than men, because in certain ways they're, because women don't have the, I would say, the direct calling to make the approach. They kind of have to be everywhere to be able to receive it if it does come around. So they're not as proactive. So being everywhere that they possibly can is probably one of the best suggestions, I would say.
Yeah, we just talked about this at our meetup group. One of the members was talking about how he feels more comfortable doing approaches when we do this group meetup event, and there's kind of an expectation, and he feels like he has permission to go talk to people. And what you just said made me think of that, Nicole, because you were saying this is your calling, you can go talk to people. So I think a lot of people feel like they don't have the permission to go and talk to a random stranger. And it comes down to recognizing that you don't need permission to just go and try and talk to somebody.
Right. But going into passion events or social activities that there's some kind of you have some kind of connection to, that creates the bridge. Which is great. You don't need that to do it, of course. But that it is helpful, I would say.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think that's really interesting. I'd never really thought about, I guess from a woman's perspective, I'd never really thought about the idea of permission and that feeling that you need that, but I agree with you. I think the more women are putting themselves in situations, like you say, that they can receive and be open to having those conversations with people, the more you will be approached and the more you will be able to approach from a man's perspective. So yeah, I think just go do cool things and give people permission. I mean, we're relational beings, right? That's what we're here to do, is relate and have fun and find the humor in life. So
100%.
Yeah, and looking to have fun too. Like what you're saying, Tim, if you're going to do these events, even if there's no one that you're particularly attracted to, finding a way to have fun. Or Nicole, what you were saying about not every interaction is going to lead to, a lifelong relationship, but finding it in just that one interaction, how can this be fun in itself? That's super powerful, because then suddenly you don't need anything else. You don't need it to go to a date. You don't need it to be anything other than just a fun interaction you have with a stranger.
Yeah, and it's a funny story that we have in our mind that dating isn't fun, because dating can be totally fun.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm recently broken up, and even though I'm, a little slow to get out there, I'm still just like super excited to go on all these dates. I mean, you get to explore all these different stories that people have about life. I mean, if you have that curiosity, which everybody can tap into if they really want to, you can have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, it stops being fun when you like start expecting what's going to come next. That's when it stops being
Expectation.
fun, when those realizations they don't come to be.
Yeah, expectation is a killer of it, I think. I think manifesting is a completely different thing to expecting. The energy is different around the two. So yeah, and I also think, like you're saying, Tim, like dating is so fun. You get to learn so much about yourself in that process. Each interaction you have, you kind of go home and you're like, oh, I said that. Like, I can't believe I said that, or I did this, or you get to do things that people show you the world in a different way, which is just wonderful. And you get to share your life as well. So you find your own worth. And sometimes it's not great. And then you also learn from that and like, okay, gee, I thought that person was this way, but actually now I see what that energy was that I couldn't place, or whatever it is. So I think it's a great experiential experiment. So yeah.
Yeah, and you just learn so much from those failures, I mean, I'm working on building our coaching business, and I'm having to learn how to do sales calls, which when I first, thought about doing them, it put a sickness in my stomach thinking I was going to have to do it. But really, there isn't that much that's different between sales and approaching. And I've had to fail on some sales calls, and I got a little upset afterwards, kind of depressed a little bit. But what I got to learn from that was incredible, and getting to have people around like Will and some other friends that are close confidants, getting to kind of like talk about those challenges, you really get to get a greater understanding of what you're capable of. And what I found it doing, at least with sales, is that it's bringing me back into my purpose of why I'm doing this thing. It's taking away this idea that I have to like be this aluminum siding salesman or something like that, and can like shove this idea down to people's throats, and that I can do this from a place of love, and essentially from authenticity and from myself, and be even more effective. And I think that is generally what the evolution of getting out there on the dating scene will teach you, if you're willing to go through with rejections, which is just not easy. But I think it brings you back to yourself, ultimately.
Yeah, I think so too. What's your best pickup line on a sales call now?
Pickup line on a sales call. Jeez. I
was just joking.
really
You
thought
don't
of
have
it,
to
Nicole. I'll think about that and get back to you. Yeah. So any other thoughts on that last topic, y'all? Okay. So Nicole, let's get into learning a little bit about what you're doing in the world. You're doing some awesome stuff. Just to give you a background, I met Nicole very early on when I started getting out there as a coach, and I was working my tech job at the same time. And Nicole, I guess you got in touch with me through Meetup, I think. And I had no plans of trying to coach women at the beginning. And I think I told you that. I think I was like, I can't really speak from the female perspective. But we ended up having some great calls. I quickly learned that you knew a lot about yourself, and about what your past has been teaching you about relationships you've gone through. A lot of self-awareness I was noticing. And now you're you're off doing, and you were doing some coaching at the time, but you've gone into a new direction, and I'd love for you to tell our listeners about what you're up to.
Yeah, I think back to that time when we connected, and I was journeying through the USA, and I was in Austin, Texas at the time, looking after someone's house and chickens and things. And I saw your post on about dating coach, and it's a funny story because someone had approached me to do these videos on dating and relationship on YouTube, and it was like an extra income for me. And they kept talking about like contact them as a dating coach. And I was like, what is this dating coaching about? I mean, I've walked, like you say, a journey, and like I'm quite curious. And so when I saw your meetup post, I thought to reach out. And yeah, we had some great calls, you're right. And what I most appreciated about that was the space you gave to really be vulnerable. So thank you. I learned a lot from that. And so I've I've walked this journey from just doing more mindset manifestation, life coaching, to really hearing my heart in the sense of helping other people find intentional intimacy. And I'm still learning what that is. So I've started, and it's kickstarting hopefully in the next 2 weeks. I'll keep you posted on that. So the movement, I guess, or the venture is called the Chemistry Connection. I kind of sat down and I realized that it's in our chemistry and in our science to love, to be connected. We try resist it. We try, put a box around it, but it really is kind of in who we are. And the more and we spoke about this a little bit now already, but the more you are in touch with who you are, the more you are intentionally intimate with who you are, and something more like intrapersonal intelligence, like understanding who you are inside, the more you will attract that kind of love into your life that is right for you. So I guess I'm on a bit of a mission to really help people love themselves. And I think we throw around the word love and doesn't always mean so much anymore, but it's really knowing yourself, knowing your worth, knowing what makes you tick, knowing your quirks. And so the intentional intimacy is something I'm really passionate about. And it's really just connecting with yourself.
Creating the relationship with yourself before you're creating that with other people is really what it sounds like to me, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm curious to learn more about it through other people too. It's not going to be as much. I will be doing some coaching on the things that I've learned, but there'll be some courses and some workshops, so we can all kind of grow in that together.
Nice.
But yeah, just understanding that we're all energy, and what you put out there is what comes back to you.
That's phenomenal. Where can people find this information?
So I'll share a link. You can go to Nicole Karmine / the Chemistry Connection. And I will also provide a promo code for your listening community for coaching and for any masterclasses that are coming and courses. So I'll keep you posted on what's happening. And you can also just reach me at nicolekarmine@gmail.com.
Awesome. This aspect of intimacy is something that I think a lot of people might be resistant to at first. I think it might take a few steps in for some people to really open themselves up, because I think it's just such an incredibly vulnerable topic, right? Have you noticed that there's a lot of like warming people up to the idea of creating that kind of connection with themselves?
Yes. And even from my own work with myself, I'm constantly having to remind myself that it's okay. I can let the guard down, checking in with myself, like, how are you feeling? It's okay to feel emotional today. It's okay to feel this. It's okay to feel hurt by it. But it's about not sitting in it. So I think the biggest thing I've noticed with clients is really just creating that safe space for yourself. If you are getting too involved in your emotions, that's how you're going to interact in the world. You're going to play in that bubble. But there's a space here in your heart that's really giving you the nudges and really telling you kind of what your voice is and what you need. So we often put before what we need, what other people want from us. And I think, and that's a natural thing to do, you know, we kind of get trained that society wants this, your parents want this from you, you know, and maybe that's just not where you are at, and that's okay.
So I have a question, Nicole. A few months back, I was in a breathwork session, and it's called somatic breathwork, if you've heard of that. But it's basically you're doing a bunch of breathing, like intense breathing, and then breath holds. And I think maybe after or during the middle of one, the guy leading the breathwork asked the question to everybody, like, how can you show yourself self-love? Like, how can you show it to yourself, or what would that look like? And in my head, I was like, shit, I don't know. Like, I was just like blank. I was like, I literally don't know how to show myself that. So I'm curious where do I go from there?
I love that question, and I think it is a hard question that we all
Yeah.
struggle to answer. I think it depends on what that is for you. I mean, it's quite a personal thing, right? And this is the thing with intentional intimacy and building that connection with yourself. There's no kind of one size fits all. For example, taking yourself on a little date, you know, instead of dating other people, what do you enjoy doing? You know, I don't know. I just love sometimes putting on music and being silly and dancing and singing out loud and experiencing my body, experiencing who I am in my own space. Because what's quite cool about that is that once you know how you are with yourself and you're comfortable with that, you will very quickly see when you're with other people and dating, when you veer away from that self. And I kind of call it the silly self. Because we the most vulnerable when we're silly and, you know, and playful with ourselves. But yeah, I don't know. Have you had some thoughts of like what that would look like for you, or not really?
I think somewhat similar to what you're saying, of like doing things for myself, figuring out more about who I am, and then taking that with me into dating other people. And also like self-trust has been a big thing for me, like having more trust in myself, and that kind of is like similar to love.
I think trust is such a huge thing, and self-trust is massive, right? You're right.
Yeah.
I think that is really one of the big foundations of being able to pull the right love into your life. And we all have that intuition, but we don't always trust it. For some reason, we kind of lose that along the way. So that's really a great one. Yeah. And finding like cool things for you to do. Sometimes people journal, sometimes writing poetry or creating some kind of art. I really think art's quite an amazing expression of self, you know, and so I always encourage people to be creative. You might not always know what's going to come out of there, and yeah, it could be emotional, but that's cool, and it shows you something.
Yeah, I was going to mention that I feel very vulnerable admitting this, but I have conversations with myself where if I'm going through a hard time, I'll kind of like talk to myself and coach myself through it, you know? The other night I was like, I was having a conversation with my buddy Bill, and he was pointing out that, you know, because I had a number of like kind of minuscule worries about my world when I really look back at them. That's what they feel like now, but at the time they felt like they were very big worries. And he was talking about all the people that he knew from high school and other periods of his life growing up, and how a lot of those people that he had these amazing experiences with now have somewhat dreadful lives, you know. And we were just both musing on the fact that like we're not doing that bad, you know. We're doing our passions. We're in exciting cities with, you know, making incredible friends and doing incredible stuff. And I the rest of the night I was just talking to myself, and I was just like, we're doing all right, Tim. Like, we're doing good. And every once in a while I'll have these moments, and you mentioned being silly with yourself. Like, I live alone, and I do have a dog, so that does kind of create some type of presence in the house. But I'll oftentimes like be in the mirror, and I'll just making silly faces and just goofing around with myself. And I do notice that there's a particular relationship available there of just being able to be on your own and step outside of what you're normally doing and really be able to like interact with yourself.
Having those moments of awareness, like you were saying with Bill, where you're like, things are pretty good, like realizing that. And I have that there's some days where I'm just like going through stuff, and then I have to like stop myself for a moment and realize like this is a good life I have. Things are pretty good. And I think that makes a huge difference, even though they're like the smallest little moments.
Yeah, and that requires you to sort of step outside of your normal grind, your automatic mode, and to like reflect. And I think that's the relationship that's available.
Yeah, definitely. And also what really changed the game for me is when I realized, there's a voice in your head that you're listening to. It's not you. You can hear it. And so when you create that, and it's not a separation of self, it's just the awareness that you can have a conversation with yourself, and you're hearing the narrative, the tape playing in your mind. And then you can change that. You can be like, hey, well, actually, is that what you have to say about me? Well, I don't agree. And let's look in the mirror. Let's be like, hey, you're beautiful. I think you have worth. And whatever it is that you having a negative tape playing, you can change that and into something positive. So self-trust, self-worth, self-love, it's a huge thing. And we can't expect to be finding these things out there if we're not having it with ourselves first and foremost, So yeah, I love that. But you're not crazy, Tim. I talk to myself all the time.
I've actually found myself in situations where I was going through a hard time and my therapist wasn't available, and I actually kind of created a visualization of my therapist being there and talking about the situation just on my own. Like I was like kind of therapizing myself. And ultimately the people that are in our program are going to be learning that how to coach themselves, because that's really, where we can only do so much as coaches to set the standard, but ultimately they're going to have to learn how to do this. They're going to have to learn how to be their own coach, to step outside themselves and to really like be on their side and advocate for themselves.
Yeah, they're with themselves all the time. We're only there however much time a week.
Yeah.
That's true. And I always think like coaching, if you're successful as a coach, it's maybe 8 to 12 or whatever it is sessions, like you equipping the person to help themselves, right? And it's not like you're in therapy for years or whatever it is. So it's really creating change. That's what drew me to coaching. It's really progressive, forward moving. So I like that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Cool. Well, thank you so much for sharing about what you've been up to, and it just sounds so amazing. I really encourage everyone to go and check that out. There's so much that can be done in that field that I think a lot of people really need help with. We're never, the same thing with really dating and approach. Nobody really ever teaches us these skills, and certainly nobody really ever teaches us intimacy. And just hearing what you're saying, I'm kind of wondering, is that an area of my life that I need to look into? Probably is. So I'm glad there's people out there that are doing that, like yourself, Nicole.
Oh, thanks, Tim. Yeah, I'm very excited to see where this all goes and also to learn through it. Yeah, thanks that I could share and keep you posted on everything that's coming.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I think maybe where we'll take it from here. Did you have anything top of mind at the moment, Will? Okay. I think where we could take the podcast from here is, we for the first 5 podcasts that we've had, we've been mostly talking about men approaching women, and we got into a little bit about women approaching men in the with the Instagram reel and the Reddit post. But I'd like to get like a little bit more of a sense of from you, Nicole, what has the in-person act of meeting people been like for you recently? What kind of are there any experiences that come to mind where like a guy has come up and approached you and what that experience was like? Anything like that?
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there was something that's like really was noteworthy, standing out to mention. But and I think I mentioned this earlier. I think one thing that really has stood out for me being here where I am now is probably a little bit of a softer style approach that the French have. And I think there's really a respect for women, which is something that women want, as much as some women will not show that they want that. So,
Absolutely.
there's something along the lines of that makes you feel more woman. And so one interaction I had in a little town in Biarritz is, and this guy did not even try approach me. So this is why this was so interesting to me, is that I was walking with Gracie down the road, and generally when people approach one another in the road, they don't want to let the other person see that you're seeing them, but you are looking. So and he walked up past me, and he just did not waver for a second. He just looked at me, he smiled, and he had this maturity and contentness about it. And I walked past and I felt like my energy changed from that interaction. I felt more woman. I don't even know how else to explain it. And I thought that was a beautiful experience. From then on out now, I'm like, this is what you want when you experience something with another person, And I think there was a level of maturity and a level of respect. And so I can encourage people to look others in the eye. Do not shy away from that, like we were saying earlier. And when you're solid in yourself, I think that shows. So yeah, that to me was just a wonderful, spontaneous approach, which wasn't even, it was like a non-approach. I don't know what to call it. But I really appreciated it.
No, that's really powerful, and it's something we've been discussing quite a bit, especially because for me, I've really struggled with eye contact. It's been
Me too.
something that I have been working with recently, and I actually just at our last meetup, I was across a field and I saw this girl who looked really, really beautiful, and I maintained eye contact with her the whole way, and I was blown away by just how powerful of an experience that was. So I want to ask you a little bit about eye contact yourself, Nicole, but I also want to just point out what you mentioned about the respect aspect of that.
Mhm.
It sounds to me like this is a concept that we use in our program called the lens of beauty, and it also relates to, we also talk about this other concept called cultivated space. And what I'm hearing from that is that when we talk about the lens of beauty, that's kind of our framework for attraction. That's how we think about creating a space for attraction with other people. And it's inspired by this author called Zan Perion. And he has this saying that beauty needs a witness. And in your story there, it seemed very clear to me that his mode of attraction actually created that space, that cultivated space for you to feel that beauty. It like opened you up and gave you the room to feel beautiful and to feel seen and admired. And he was able to do that because he was not looking at you like a piece of meat, but he was actually looking at you as an object of affection and adoration, and seeing maybe more of a spiritual aspect to your femininity than just the carnal.
Yeah, it's exactly that. And you know, as you were explaining now, I don't really know what it, I mean, I know we're going through a lot of weird things in the world around gender and all of that, but I think ultimately women want to be women. Women want to be feminine. Women and men want women to be feminine. And so what I think sometimes happens is that women become harder because we don't feel respected. And when we feel that respect, like you say, and that value and that approach in that way, that's softer, we can relax in ourselves. We can go back to that. And eye contact is such an interesting thing in this, because sometimes I have found that I don't make eye contact with men because I'm worried that it will give the wrong impression. And that sometimes it does, you know, like we were saying earlier, maybe it's me pulling that in, but you give the eye contact and then the next thing, you know, you've opened up a whole conversation you didn't want. And so I think the more we can strive as a world to be giving each other respectful spaces where you can make eye contact, where you can go to that natural sense of self and have a respectful way, we will find more in-person real interactions. You know, we will probably get off the dating apps because it will be easier. We will be allowing each other the space to be real in person. So yeah, I think that's completely hits the nail on the head for me. So yeah, but I'll never forget. I without even knowing that person's name, I will forever be grateful to him. So
Yeah. And that gratitude is something that we hear from so many women. Just in fact, the last in-person meetup that we had in the park, one of the guys there was told by a woman that she was so grateful that he came up and talked to her. I think she might have had a boyfriend, but it didn't matter. Like, just the fact that he went up there and made that approach was just like so powerful and impactful in a way that, you know, nothing has to come from it, you know. But the fact that they're willing to witness your beauty and create it, and again, it empowers you, right? It brings about a sense of worth, and it acknowledges your essence.
Mhm. Yeah, and I want to invite women to do the same for men. You know, we probably have certain different expectations of men as well that could be old school and, like, you know, outdated. So I think that the more respect and love we create for that space, the more we allow men to step into that space for us as well.
Without a doubt, that is super important. It is not a one-sided thing. I had this experience where I was at this bar, and there were a lot of eccentrics at this event, and this woman, she, I mean, I would have, in any other case, I would have thought she was on some kind of drugs, because she was just sitting there in this incredibly blissful state. But I don't think that she actually was on drugs. But she just held eye contact with me, and I wasn't attracted to her with, you know, just her fitting my standard lens of the kind of women that I'm attracted to, but I was so blown away and just like, who is this person? And I went over and talked to her, and she gave me that space. She gave me that cultivated space because she saw my essence, my, you know, my masculine essence, I guess you would call it. But like, I felt very, very seen and very appreciated and admired. And it just really, I think I was having a hard time at the time, and it really gave me a boost. It really made me feel really good. And we have this opportunity all the time to go out there and see this in the people that we're attracted to. And it's really truly a gift. And, you know, the thing I think that gets me nervous about doing the eye contact is just a lot of stories that I'm making up about what that actually means. Like I think my main reason for avoiding it is the thing that we talked about earlier in the episode, like feeling like a creep, like I'm leering at somebody. And that's making me look like a creep as a result. I have another choice though. I can look at women through the lens of beauty, and I can look for their essence. I can look for beauty within them, even if I don't necessarily see it right off the bat. And Will, I want to talk about that part too, about the woman you met in Minnesota. Yeah. But it really does come down to making that choice and seeing the world through a different lens, and not feeling that there's a standard that if a guy holds eye contact with a girl that equals creep, because that's just not the truth. And I'm constantly trying to remind myself that, because once when you're in a social environment and you see that opportunity there, our mental capacity kind of, just sort of shrinks and dials down, and it's very hard to stay centered in those situations. And that's why all of this takes so much practice and just getting used to and comfortable experiencing those opportunities.
I think just remember that every woman wants to hear they're beautiful. Every woman wants to feel that they are being seen, and every human being wants to feel that acknowledgement that they belong, and they're worthy. And so I think it's the energy with which you come at, like exactly like you say, you can look at someone and make them feel creepy from that energy, or you can look at someone and make them feel like, wow, that really empowered me, like that situation. And I've often had people look at me for a long time, but it's never felt creepy, because I can feel the loving softness behind that. So I think, just like you say, working on your own energy, and you will probably see people blossom in front of you when you give them that recognition, so.
Yes. And Nicole, just to build off of what you just said there, I was talking to one of the guys at the meetup yesterday about, he was telling me that he goes to a place where there's lots of dancing, and he dances as well. And he notices that there's a lot of guys there, and he feels that there's too much competition. And I said, yeah, but what kind of competition are you talking about? Like, I have a hunch that a lot of these guys have one thing on their mind, as most guys do, and you have the opportunity to have something different on your mind, and women will notice that. And he's like, what are you talking about? Like, how are women going to notice that? And I tried to explain to him that women can just sense this energy, this field of energy that people that guys have, with that is made up of everything that they're built upon and what they stand upon. And women can notice this stuff. Like, there is some kind of like psychic intuition that women have, way stronger than we could ever imagine. Like, I feel like I'm a pretty sensitive guy, but not to the level that I've heard other women are able to interpret these signals.
I love that, Jan. I think there is something, and I don't think us as women really even understand the fullness of it either. We just probably have it. But one thing I will say, and I don't know, this keeps coming up from what you're talking, is the one thing I have noticed on dating apps, and this probably beyond the dating app, of how you present yourself in the world, whether you're walking in a bar or at a dance club or whatever it is. Please just smile. Like, when you smile and when you are being joyful, that is natural. These photos that are like posing and like all serious, like, I don't know if that's like the common look for being masculine, but it's not. I can promise you now, that is not how we interpret it. So I feel like
that was one of my follies when I was on dating apps, that all my friends were like, you need to put some pictures where you're smiling.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't want to though. I think it's a defense mechanism. probably.
Yeah, it is.
You
It
know,
is.
the smile is vulnerable.
But it's so inviting, and I think, to me that's like when someone's just in their natural state, and yeah, so that would be my tip and or tactic, like you said earlier, for approach.
Yeah, especially when you're maintaining eye contact. Will and I enjoy watching this clip from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood where Brad Pitt is maintaining eye contact with a woman that looks way too young for him, but he's keeping the eye contact going the entire time, and every time she looks over, he smiles. And I think, especially for eye contact, you want to make sure that you're tapping into joy. Not a fake smile, but like joyful that you're getting this feedback. Like it should bring joy into your heart. It should make you giggle, you know?
Yeah,
Just like
exactly. I'm curious to hear the story that you were mentioning earlier now from you.
This is a good
Will.
one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Before that, I want to say I don't think there's a picture of me before 2020 smiling. So I used to be the exact same. Like I just didn't smile in pictures. I have since learned how, so I'm okay now. But yeah,
Good.
this story kind of ties in perfectly. So I was at the gym, and there was a girl there working out just in a different area, and it was kind of similar to your story, Tim, where she didn't fit my like conventional attractive model of a woman, like not who I typically would be interested in. And there was a point where she walked across from me so we could see each other, and we just kind of locked eyes for, the entirety of her passing by. And we smiled at each other and kind of just had like we shared that moment together. Then I went back to my workout, continued doing whatever, and then she starts walking around the walking track at the gym, and it kind of goes by where I'm working out. And every time she goes by, I turn around and we just hold eye contact and smile. And it's almost like we're having a like little conversation, even though we have not spoken a word to each other. And so, Nicole, to your point, even though I did end up talking to her after a couple times, like she totally approached me. Like it was all her because of the eye contact. And it totally changed the way I saw her. Because like I said, it wasn't like the typical, model of this is who I'm attracted to. But her having that confidence and having the ability to hold eye contact and approach me in that way just changed the way that I saw her.
Yeah,
Oh, I
and
love
real
that.
quick to that point, this is the opportunity for guys that may feel that like visually they're not the standard attractive model. Like I'm 5'8", I should be 6 foot, I'm not though. But what this woman did though is that she created that space for Will to see her, and what he saw was something that was beyond what he had as his normal filter set up for this is who I'm attracted to, this is who I'm not attracted to. So guys that maybe struggle in the looks department or the height department or whatever, you have an opportunity to open that space for women to see you by doing that kind of thing. I just wanted to make a really quick note of that.
Yeah. And I just wanted to make a point that she was like super cute and beautiful in her own way. Like she had the looks. It just was not what I was expecting, not what I was like looking for.
And everybody has that opportunity to be their own unique form of handsome and attractive as well. Again, it may not come in the perfect packaging for our culture at the moment, but like you have that opportunity to be that way too. I know I've like had huge crushes on girls that at first, when I first saw them, I was just totally not attracted. As soon as they open up their personality, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Because it's so weird, with relationships, we are mirrors to some degree of each other. And if you can find somebody that is inspired by by you, you're more likely to be inspired by them if there's that attractive opportunity.
Yeah, and I think also it's beyond the physical, right? There's the intellectual and the emotional, and like we talk about the humor. I think humor is such a big thing. You know, you often see these like gorgeous tall models, and then they're dating like a short guy, you know, that you would like bald or whatever else. And it's like because he makes her laugh. It's wonderful. And I think that's great that you could open yourself up to that. And I've had similar experiences where for some reason we have these ideas in our minds, right, of what person should look like, what we should look like. And I think if we can break that down and really just focus on the energy that you're feeling, we'll have a lot more success in dating for sure.
For sure. And this is
yeah.
unfortunately something that dating apps kind of feed the fire of, because with dating apps, there's this sort of sense of access to whoever is on there. You know, maybe this person will message me back. So we end up like trying to just really focus on like the picture perfect, well packaged kind of types, and it really does cloud our the opportunities that actually really do exist out there, which is attraction and love can be found in so many different kinds of packages, shapes, and sizes. So it's important just to keep that in mind.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I've often found that, you know, and for women out there, I know we all struggle with this. Men, you don't really worry so much about these things, but like when you don't have your makeup on, when you're just natural, you're probably at your most beautiful when you're having a good time. And I had this really interesting encounter a couple of years ago where I just come out of a really long like relationship, was pretty heartbroken and kind of trying to figure out who I was and finding myself again. And I was living in this little cute cottage close to a beach, and I walked down and I was just like running around with the dogs, literally running around being silly on the beach, not caring what anyone thought. No makeup, nothing. In my mind, I probably looked like shit, but whatever. So I sat down, and then there was this guy kind of jotting down things on a paper. And as I walked away and I was on my way out of the beach, there was no one else. He handed it to me, and on the paper it said to the girl on the beach, and he'd written me this letter and basically had said just how much joy it had brought him, you know, and how beautiful he thought I was in this moment. And that like changed my view on this completely. And I just realized that, you know, it's not about the picture perfect. It's not about the trophy. Just be who you are. And it's a hell of a freeing release when you get to that point, you know. So
yeah. Wow, that sounds amazing. That sounds like it was built for like a romance novel or something.
Such a good story. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was really a special moment. So yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you guys for sharing. That's awesome. Was there any questions that you might have had for us, Nicole? You've been listening to our podcasts. Any things that are standing out to you in your life at the moment with love and romance that you might be struggling with or challenged with or just wanting to get clarity on?
To be honest, I've kind of been in the intentional intimacy loop, really spending time with myself a lot more. So I haven't really been too much on the dating scene in the last couple of months. But yeah, I guess I was quite curious about the whole poser, like the whole not smiling thing. But thank you for clarifying that. So I really needed to understand that a little bit more, because I just think it's so beautiful when people smile. But yeah, I think maybe one thing I am quite curious about is, what do you guys as guys think about like how to dress and wardrobe, you know, and what women perceive from that? I think that's quite an interesting one.
Oh yeah, we've really never even talked about this.
Brand new topic.
I mean, women, we're always thinking about these things, right? So, but I'm curious.
And I'd love to. I mean, I'd also love to hear from the woman's perspective what it means when, you know, how the man presents themselves. I can give you an idea of what I think it means. I think the way that you dress shows intention. It shows self-expression. And when I say intention, I'm talking like, if you can dress in a certain way that you want to make an impact in the world, right? And it doesn't have to be over the top. There just needs to be thought put into it. So for me, I don't like to fuss about clothes all that much. I have a very like streamlined wardrobe, I guess you could say. But for me, expression is the types of boots that I wear. I have a very specific style of boot that I like to wear, and it's not a very common boot. It's actually kind of like an ankle boot, which I found. This is like cowboy ankle boot. And I also think the jacket really does matter a lot too. Other than that, I usually wear like black jeans because I don't like anything but denim on my legs. I don't like any kinds of dress pants. I hate the way that feels. And I just go simple with a sweater. Now, there's some people in the pickup community. There was this thing called peacocking, which is essentially dressing very boldly and extravagantly. And funny thing, my buddy Jeremy and I, we went to a New Year's Eve party where he sported this new jacket that he got at this thrift store, and this jacket is very extravagant. It's got kind of like, it's like a puffy jacket, and it's got a graphic mountain and sun on it, and everybody at the party was asking him about the jacket and was admiring the jacket, and that's kind of a form of peacocking. There was a time in my life where I was wearing very like psychedelic shirts. Wrangler has a line of these cowboy shirts that are very bold colors, very psychedelic. And I would wear those out, and people would always be commenting on those things, and it helps create conversation. So nothing wrong with peacocking. Like it is a way of kind of standing out and being bold and offering the opportunity for conversations. But if you're not wanting to go to that kind of extreme, I still think that men can benefit a lot from creating a style for themselves that isn't necessarily for anybody else, but has the intention of mind of making an impact of expression with themselves, something that is unique to them, that they want to show the world, that they know will communicate to the world. So that means not going over the top and wearing something just super goofy that maybe people won't get. And I mean, you can certainly wear whatever you want to wear, but what I'm talking about is the relationship of the clothing. It should not necessarily be all about yourself or all about them. It needs to be kind of like a midway bridge between the people that you're wanting to meet. That's my thoughts on it.
I haven't even thought about this much at all. Like I don't know. I go very simple, like streamlined, like you were saying, but definitely more so. Like I figure out what works for me, and then that's what I do. And like I don't go shopping often, so I think I need to pass it over to you, Nicole, and maybe you can give me some advice on this.
I definitely am not the girl to be giving wardrobe advice, but I find it interesting, and I think it's just great to hear that it's like you doing what's authentic to you. I think that a lot of times we will focus on those kind of things, like what someone's wearing, the dress is, but it does say so much about who you are, right? And so I think just maybe for men and women out there to know that is so much part of the energy giving out, just like the eye contact. It's so natural. We are human. That is something we notice from the word go. Like, men notice women in the way they dress. So likewise, we notice that. So, and I think the more someone is okay with authentically expressing through clothing, hair, whatever it is, because we have all these beautiful little tools, to be able to express in life. Whether that's putting a tattoo on your skin or whatever it is, you have your body to show that. And to know that that does have an impact, to know that that is being seen. It's not that that goes unnoticed. So I think if you shying away from wearing something where you really want to, and that might be the piece of clothing or whatever it is that attracts the person, like you say, that engages with you because they resonate with that. So but yeah, just keep it cool, I think is the best I can say. I'm not a big shopper either, so totally resonate with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I just imagine that if I'm going up and talking to a woman that I desire, and I'm wearing sweatpants and like a stain on my shirt, it's just gonna speak volumes to like my life. Because I make the very explicit decision every morning to put my clothes on, and I make the very explicit decision of when to update my wardrobe. So if I'm not wearing the kinds of clothes that speak to a person who would actually put that, a decent outfit together, then I'm not really showing what I'm all about. I mean, there is, unfortunately, it is a thing that we have to work on. It may seem very trivial to some, but it is born from the choices that we make in the world, and therefore it does speak a lot.
Yeah, no, big time. And I think exactly what you're saying, and maybe this is what got me thinking about that, is that there's the emotional part, like we were talking about, but there's the physical part, and we can't ignore that. We're human. So, and that is such a big part of who you are and the choices you make, like you say. And it's a reflection of your life and your inner self. And so I think it's important. But just be authentic in that. I mean, the person wearing the Porsche t-shirt is by no means better or cooler than the person wearing, I'm using a South African, I don't know what's the right, Costco, I don't know, pick and pay. Wherever you are in the world, you'll understand the reference, But yeah, I think it's just important to know that who you are, show that in its fullness, and be proud of who you are. Keep that self-worth. So yeah.
For sure. I have one last question for Nicole. This is a question that I've been surveying a lot of women because I'm going to be giving a program for women, offering a program for women as well. So just wanted to really understand their space a little bit more. And one of the questions I asked the most recent woman was, if you're at like a social event or like a bar, let's say you're at a bar and there's a whole bunch of people that you just don't know around you. Aside from eye contact, which I think is a great thing, what are some other ways that you could, if you saw somebody that you really desired, that you really want to talk to, without necessarily going up and, and expressing your interest in them, what are some other ways that you might capture the guy's attention or provide access? Have you ever had to do anything like that beyond eye contact that you can think of?
Usually eye contact's pretty powerful. But I mean, let's say, for example, that you, like you say, you're at a bar and then you're needing a next drink. Maybe you've already done the eye contact thing. Positioning yourself close to the guy is helpful, because then that gives them the opportunity to say, can I buy you a drink? Or what do you like drinking? Or I notice you drink this, I've never seen that, or whatever it might be. And then you have that interaction. So it ain't going to help if you're standing on the corner, and you want that guy to come to you. So I think it's important to be confident in yourself, to be able to move through the room and also approach the person a bit more intimately in that way. And then, yeah, it gives you an opportunity to talk to them, to I think sometimes it's easier in a bar because if there's music and maybe there's a band or whatever it is and you're singing, it's just easier to navigate around and be able to dance with someone and have a moment. So I think opening yourself up to dancing or just being okay with maybe grabbing someone's hand and like dancing with them, and they can also show if they're not interested in that. But generally, I don't think a guy's going to say no to a girl opening up that movement. So if you're interested, like don't be scared to show it either for a woman now. I sometimes you have to go and get what you want.
Right. And the more I think about it, the more I think that even offering a compliment wouldn't necessarily be you making a first move necessarily. Because compliments don't, I mean, you can have expectation outcome with a compliment, but you don't have to have expectation to the outcome with a compliment. You can offer a compliment freely. It doesn't have to lead to anything. It doesn't have to be perceived as you trying to get something from somebody. You could just offer a compliment, just be like, I just noticed you. I think you're really handsome. I just wanted you to know that. And that could be it. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think compliments are great. And I think if it's personal, when I say personal, I mean you've paid attention to what the person, how they've interacted, or maybe, like you say, a piece of clothing or something that shows that you're interested in who they are, then it's even more valuable. And so, yeah, like saying, really like your jacket, or, are you here to listen to the band, whatever it might be, and to express that you like that about that person. But yeah, showing interest in that is not just general. I think this is the problem that's happening out there and why people probably don't interact as much, because there's so many general pickup lines that fly around, and it's like, okay, well, you didn't really take the moment to to really see me for who I am, and it goes both ways.
We were talking about this on another episode. We have some contrary thoughts on that, but
oh, really? Okay,
just to explain, there are a lot of general compliments, of course, and I see the problem with those general compliments not necessarily being that they're the common thing, like you're beautiful, you're handsome, or whatever. It's more so the intention behind it, the thought put into it. So, for instance, I could see a girl that, maybe I can't put it into any other words. Maybe it is just, she is beautiful, and I know that. And if I'm going to go and stray from knowing that that's the way that I'm perceiving her to, like, complimenting her on her jacket, that's almost kind of inauthentic in a way. So, if you're giving general compliments in a way where it really is actually really meaningful to you and they actually really do strike you and you just can't think of any other word to use, by all means use that. But if you're using general compliments because you're not really really putting much thought into it, and the intention is more so to try to attract this woman to your bed, that's where the general compliments fall flat in my thoughts. Curious what you think about that.
Yeah, no, I think you're hitting the nail on the head. It's the intention behind it. In the end of the day, we can feel that. And so when someone genuinely says, I think you're very beautiful, and they mean that, and there's nothing more else to say about it, then that's more than enough. In fact, it's wonderful. So it's really when it's used in the not wrong way, but just with the wrong intention.
Yeah, the ineffective way.
When it's like repeated, you can tell they're just saying something they know how to say, rather than something they're feeling and putting into those
Sounds
words.
robotic.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And actually, this is reminding me of something which was bizarre. It's the first time it ever happened to me in my coaching career. But I had someone approach me online to asking for coaching. And we had a call because I couldn't quite understand what he was needing. But in the end of the day, it turned out that he was struggling in some social interactions with not just women, men too, but and just wanted to make sure that he got this right. Like, he was doing really well in his business, but this part was was mediocre. And so what it turned out was he wanted me to observe him and see, like, when he says certain things, when does it feel genuine? When does it feel like good? What smile, what kind of look, or whatever else? And I said to him, no, I can't do this, because, you know, he wanted to mimic those moments. He wanted to, like, learn what those look like and then use them in the world. And I said, but it doesn't matter how much you practice that look or that smile or that angle of something. People are going to feel your energy in that moment, you know, and that is way more powerful. But I was just blown away that someone had wanted to take that approach. And I'm sure there's a lot of that. And so I think just be true to yourself.
It sounds like trying to fix the symptom rather than what's really at the heart of the matter. And what's at the root of it is the opportunity to tap into your authenticity and, you know, your belief in yourself and your love for yourself. And from there, everything will kind of flourish outwards from that. Is that what was coming to your mind too?
Yeah. And the other thing is, like, he can try to fix all these problems that come up and make himself seem so authentic. But wouldn't the easier thing be to just fix that root problem and actually be authentic, and then everything else just comes naturally? And we've talked about that, about how it seems like the tips and tricks are the easy, you know, the easy route, but they might not be at all.
No, and it sometimes does take a little bit of deep digging, which is, like you say, the hard work. And he never got back to me, so I was like, okay, I don't think he's ready to dig in there. So yeah, but it's worth it. It's worth going there into yourself.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Any further thoughts, y'all? I think this was a great podcast, and Nicole, thank you so much for joining us from France. Are you in Paris right now?
I'm in a little town called Ville-sur-Rison, which is a little while away from Avignon, but kind of in that region in Provence. So
sounds amazing.
No, it's incredible. I'm feeling very privileged to be here. So it's great to hear it's going well in Austin, Texas. There, it's not heat time yet, but last time I was there in July, it was like crazy heat. So
no, we actually have great weather here now. Yesterday was a great day out in the park. Perfect. But yes, thank you so much, Nicole. We really enjoyed all your insights. You are such a powerful woman with so many incredibly amazing ways of looking at the world, and we really got a lot out of that. Would you like to tell our viewers a little bit more about how they can find you and the promo codes that you have set up for them?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. And thank you again for having me on. I hope for lots more discussions with you guys. I thoroughly enjoyed that as well. Thank you.
We would love to have you back for sure.
Yeah, anytime. So people can contact me at nicolekarmine@gmail.com. Look out for the Chemistry Connection, whether on Instagram or on the web. And and I'll provide some promo codes to you to give forward to your community. And you're welcome to contact me for coaching. And also I will be announcing some masterclasses and courses that I'm working on. So I'm really looking forward to building that community and learning more about what our chemistry has to say and how we connect with each other in that way. So thank you.
Absolutely. And the Chemistry Connection, that's on all the major podcasting channels?
It's not on podcasting yet. I'm sure that's an idea. But it's on the web and it's on Instagram, and I'm slowly building up that community.
You mentioned there was another podcast, though, that you were involved in, right?
Yes. Thanks for reminding me. So every week we have a podcast on, it's on all the platforms called Friday. The podcast is called Your Happy Hour. So perfect for Friday. And it's hosted by one of my other ventures called Friday Feels. And I have a co-founder and co-host, Saj Shalikram, on there. So join us and feel free to connect with us on Friday Feels and Your Happy Hour as well.
Yes, I got to listen to some of that. It was really a fantastic podcast. So I think y'all would really love to check that out.
Awesome.
Thank you
Thank
again
you.
so much, Nicole. You are incredible, and we are definitely going to have you back without a doubt.
Yeah, I want to echo everything Tim said, Nicole. It's great having you.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Have a
Thanks
good
again,
one.
Nicole. All right. Well, that about wraps it up for us today. Got to get moving. Thank you all so much for joining us. Again, we are the Art of Approach. You can find more information about us on www.theartofapproach.com. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Take care.